Hello, everyone, and welcome back to another AfterShock Happy Hour live stream. I am your host and the Senior Retail Relations Manager here at AfterShock Comics, RuthAnn Thompson. So we have a jam-packed show for you today. We have not only the Joe Pruett to talk to, as well as Dave Sharpe. We have some pre-recorded interviews with the Miranda Brothers about their We Live title to fit in there as well as our live sale with exclusive stuff that is on sale and you can only get here. So let's get started with the incredible, the incomparable, amazing publisher, Joe Pruett. How are you doing, good sir?
Hey Ruth Ann, I had no idea who you're talking about with that
You're like, wait,
lead up.
who is that
It's
guest
like
going to be? Who
I thought it was
knows?
me today. I thought it was me.
It is you. So, assuming everybody knows you, but not everybody knows all the stuff that you've done because you have had quite an amazing career. So, why don't we just start off of how you got into this comic book industry to
Sure,
start
sure.
with?
I basically started out after I got out of college with nothing to do, like most people. I reached out to Bob Burden, who did a comic book called Flaming Carrot Comics at Dark Horse. I was a fan of. Found out he was local in Atlanta. We both graduated from University of Georgia. So I reached out to him with just a letter saying, I just graduated. I want to work in the comics. I see you as assistants, and I'd be happy to come work for you for free, just learn the business. And to my surprise, about 3 weeks later, he called me up and told me to come meet him and then offered me a job as his assistant. So that's how I broke into comics. I
Yeah.
broke in thinking I was going to be an artist, quickly realized I was not. I was not good enough or fast enough to do it. So I worked with Bob and I learned lettering. I learned how to write scripts, and I'd put the balloon placements on or panels, back in the panels for him, ink in backgrounds, et cetera, et cetera. Transcribe his notes. He always walked around with a handheld tape recorder, and then give it to me and ask me to transcribe it for him so he can read it later. And the funny thing with Bob, he would never, if he was yawning, he wouldn't stop talking. If he was eating, he wouldn't stop talking. And half the time I go, Bob, what's this say? Can you translate for me? And he'll take it away for a minute and go, it says blah, 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 blah. And I was like, okay, just quit yawning when you're doing it. But I worked with Bob for about 3 years as his assistant on and off, and learned a lot. And then started meeting people in the industry. Like any entertainment business, a lot of times it's who you know. And so you have to do that, and eventually started writing my own stuff where at one point I was tied in with Paul Jenkins, who was the editor at Tundra at the time, which was Kevin Eastman's company back in the early 90s.
Ugh,
And he had
that
picked up,
guy. Ugh.
yeah. So Paul was actually the first editor I ever had in comics, strangely enough.
Huh.
And so I was tied up with him. Then Tundra kind of went away, so my project floated over to Caliber Comics, where I started my long relationship with them, starting off as just a writer on one little title, the title called Kilroy Is Here, to becoming, the creative director of the company, number two, tied for number two, because my twin brother Jim was a managing editor as well. So the two of us were both there as co-number twos. Insert joke here, but so that was a lot of fun. It was a great time. I helped make Caliber a company where you started your career to a company where you already had a career and come have fun. So I reached out and it got to kind of I started a book called Negative Burn, an anthology where I worked with a lot of the superstars of the day and a lot of the soon to be superstars of the day. So I kind of like, who can I get and who can I get? And so I reached out and I got Mobius, I got Neil Gaiman, and I got Alan Moore and Brian Ball and who was in every single issue. And it kind of to the point where it's like, who can't I get? Of course, people like to say Walt Eisner turned me down. I even reached out to John Cougar Mellencamp because he was a painter, and I found out that my wife, her second, third cousin, was in this band to start his career. So I actually went through my wife's grandmother and got John Cougar Mellencamp's home address on some package, trying to get him to let me take one of your paintings and make us a cover. Of course, he never responded to me. But my thought is, the worst they can ever say is no, or just not talk to you at all. So that was a lot of fun. I did that for several years. And then after the distribution wars kind of came and wiped out small companies and distributors and comic shops, I saw the writing on the wall, and I left Cal at the time, and somehow or another ended up writing X-Men comics at Marvel, which is where I met Mike Marks, actually. Mike, who's our editor-in-chief, a good friend of mine. He was actually one of my editors at one point on X-Men titles. So I did that for a few years too. Then again, I kind of like a chameleon, or I feel like I'm Madonna of comics. I always want to reinvent myself every few years.
That's what I'm going to
So
call you from now
yeah,
on,
the
is the
Madonna
Madonna of
comics.
comics. Hold on, I'm writing that down. Keep going.
Yeah, I'm really embarrassed I even said that
Oh,
because
it's
it will come
forever.
back to
It's
haunt me now.
forever on the internet.
So so after I left Marvel, right, I started another company called Desperado Publishing. I figured what I missed doing was working with my buddies and letting them do their visions and have fun doing creative and new voices, etc. So I did that, partnered with Image Comics for a couple of years, did it myself for a couple of years, Desperado Publishing. And then we had the big crash, what's that, 2007-ish, with a financial crash, which I saw my sales drop in half in 1 month and never recovered. So I partnered with IDW, couldn't do it myself anymore for 4 or 5, 6 years I was at IDW, where I basically ended up focusing more on the original graphic novels, but mainly into the art book line that I started at Desperado, where we did O'Brien Ballin and Big Craig Russell and George Perez, a bunch of other people. I did like 10 of them, Miniconnor, winning my first Eisner finally. A couple more nominations there, but I've always been the bridesmaid generally. But of course, the one time I did win an Eisner, I think 13 nominations. I wasn't at the show. So actually,
one time you actually won.
The funny thing is that Stephen Nilsson, who's here with us today, he's actually at the show for me and accepted the award. So he got to bring it back, ship it back to me. So he went up there and pretended to be me. No, nobody pretends that.
Not even Jim?
No, it's fine. So no, yeah, my twin brother. So and then that went on for a while, and then kind of settled down. The Desperado kind of got burned out doing the art books. I was also doing all the design work on them as well, because again, had to find something new and fun to do. So I started the designer and did all that, and I enjoyed it. I probably did over 4,000 pages of those art books. But you can only do so much and say, okay, what's next? So the next thing happened to be AfterShock. So
it just happened to be, just happened.
Well, yeah, it's like Lee Kramer, our president, is a guy I had met when he was executive at Mandalay Pictures, and he had my Curious Here project with him there. So we became, friendly at the time. And later on, I think we were trying to start another company up again. We actually was trying to start another company before AfterShock, and I had a bunch of my creative friends, names you'll recognize if I told you, but I'm not going to tell you. We're basically going to start a new image type company. We're going to be creative controlled, and it was like 7, 8, 9, 10 of us who were named guys in the company, in the industry. And we're going to do that. So we needed money. So I remember a conversation with Lee over lunch. Every time I went to LA, I would meet Lee for lunch. And he told me he had left Mandalay at the time. And one thing he helped do is raise fund and financing for films. So I was like, hey, 6 months ago, Lee, my friend, told me he raised his financing. So does that make me a potential partnership there? So I reached out to Lee and we tried it for a little bit. And we thought we were one day away from funding when the person we were going to be our financier decided it was going to be a hostile takeover and change everything the contract we agreed to for 6 months. And his reaction is like, he said the contract to me. I was like, did you not think I would read the contract? He goes, well, it's my money. I said, well, I called up one of my good buddies. And I said, hey, this is what he's saying. He's like, well, tell him what he can do to himself. So I was happily went back to him and told him, go somewhere very nice and do something to yourself. And we walked away from it.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then a year later, again, me and Lee connected again, a year or two later, and AfterShock was formed.
Yeah. It's just, it's so great. Like, you call yourself the Madonna of comics, well, which I'll never let go of, but you've always stayed in comics. It sounded like whatever you could do in comics, you were going to do. So what was it about comics? What magic was it that just kept you going with it? Whether it was, the artwork, the writing, the edit, all that stuff combined.
I grew up a comic book fan, of course. Me and my brothers both did. And Tony Harris had another analogy for me. He calls me like the comic book cockroach, where no matter what happens to me, I get stepped on and pushed aside, and then I always come back as something different. So like, again, we start different companies, and I'm a writer. I've done lettering, I wanted to be an artist. I've been a designer. But as far as comics, I grew up a big comic fan. By the time I grew up in the 70s, 80s, comics weren't cool like they are today.
Oh
Back then it
yeah,
was
not at
kind of a
all.
nerd thing to do. And I was, fairly popular, and I kept my comic collecting as a secret. Even my best friends didn't know I collected comics. And I think it was hilarious. I was in college, and I ended up a comic shop to open up in my hometown. I ended up betting the one day I was home for the weekend or something like that. I went to a comic shop locally, and one of my good friends from high school was in there shopping too. And neither one of us knew we collected comics because we kept it kind of to ourselves. It's like, oh, finally a friend I can talk to besides my brothers. So it was
Yeah.
fun.
So it's a family love though, because obviously Jim is still in comic
Yeah,
books.
my twin brother Jim, he was the managing editor at Cowboy Comics when I was creative director there. We came in there to get kind of together, or he came right after me, whichever. And as kids, I have a younger brother John as well, as 4 years younger than us. But as kids, we would make our own comics, and we had our own company. We call ourselves J&J Comics. So always Jim, Joe, and John, J&J Comics, and we would have staff meetings and assign each other assignments. And here's our monthly schedule, and we'll go make our own comics and come back and sell them to my parents for a quarter each or something. But so we did that all our lives like that. It was a lot of fun growing up like that. But yeah, I've always wanted to be in comics. And when I was in college, I decided to become an English major. It was either English or history. I decided English. I love both, but I think, okay, what can I do with history? I can be a teacher, honestly. What can I do with English? I was like, a teacher. I don't know. Not that I ever want to be a teacher. I said, history has a lot of reading to do, which I don't mind. So English has a lot of reading too. History has a lot of papers. English has a lot of papers. History is a lot of names, memorizations, dates, and facts. English is opinion, made up, whatever you think it is, just as long as you can, create your thesis, right? So I remember having a major class in English. I think it was Southern literature, perhaps. And when we got in the beginning of the class, beginning of the quarter, a teacher assigned us an out of book to read, out of class book to read. Me being a college student, I never read it. We never talked about it. We never brought it up again. I thought he forgot about it. Came to the final exam, 4 essay questions. One of them was on that book I never read. Only thing I ever read that book was like the back cover.
No.
And I was like, oh my God, this is a quarter of my greatest in this book I've never read. So I just made up an answer and convinced myself this is, here's why, and here's my reasoning behind it. And I remember getting back the final, I said, -2 points. Very good answer. I said, yes, I know I picked the right major. I'm a BSer, English major BSer. So I went the right way. So all my life now, I've decided I'm going to be a BSer and just make up stuff as I go. And that's what my whole career has been that way.
Just being the Madonna of comics as
That's
a
right.
BSer.
The Madonna cockroach of comics, where, you can step on me and I'll just come back to something new and different, stronger than before. It's the strongest.
Every single time.
Is that Christina Aguilera song or something?
Yeah, I feel like it. Yeah, it definitely is.
That's my theme music from now on, by the way. Stronger.
Oh, yeah,
okay.
Absolutely. That's, if only we had it ready. We could have had, like, that could have been your intro. It's just had that at that point and bring you in. And you wrote an incredible title with us. Speaking of taking something that's like fiction, but also a little nonfiction, is your title with us, which is Black Eyed Kids, which before this title, I had no idea about this, like, true story-esque. Like,
yeah, it's an urban legend.
It's absolutely crazy.
It's funny. I mean, I've written a lot of stuff in my career, but I've never really done a straight horror title. So I decided I wanted to do one. And I was on Facebook one day, scrolling through my homepage, and something popped up, said 50 urban legends for 50 states. I was like, okay, they catch my eye. I'm in. I'm gonna go check it out, right? And I believe like Iowa had something about Black Eyed Kids. I was like, what the hell is that? Never heard of it.
Yeah.
And then but it's a great visual. And so I started looking into it. I was like, oh my gosh, this has been going on for 30 years at least. And there's true life encounters all over the country and in UK and maybe elsewhere. And it's like, how have I never heard of this? This is such there's a story here. So I decided to create one. I created my own version of the urban legend. And this is my version of it. And the interesting thing is, before it came to AfterShock, I started writing it actually before AfterShock, and I was going to try to place it somewhere else. And but my first draft of it and what it ended up being AfterShock are a lot different, which is great because I think the final version is a lot better than I originally thought it would be, because I kept looking at it and tweaking it and what would make this better and changing it. So by the time AfterShock came around, it was ready to go. And I enjoyed doing it, and it kind of started writing itself. Everybody says, why you write about dark evil kids? I say, well, I have 6 kids of my own, so I had no choice. You write what you know, right? So not that my kids are dark and evil. If you're watching, you're not dark and evil. If you're not watching, they're totally dark and evil. And
well, there's one that you actually physically based off of one of your kids, right?
Well, there's 2 characters that my kids are in there. Basically, the one character named Michael, who's like the oldest son in the family unit we followed throughout the series. I have a son named Michael, and I mean, he's gonna hate for me saying this, but he was this very spooky, scary sleepwalker as a kid, and he would sleepwalk and say the craziest and strangest things, and I was like, well, that's cool, I gotta write that down. And I actually ended up using his sleepwalking scene in Black Eyed Kids #1, because he had like 3 really creepy sleepwalking. He stood at the top of the stairs at our house one time and goes, and I wasn't there, my wife and daughter were downstairs, and he just stood at the top of the stairs, and they go, Michael, and he goes, one more must die. And then he walked down the stairs and then went out the front door.
No!
And I'm like, whoa, that is so creepy. And he was at a friend's house, and I guess I'll go ahead and tell the stories now. He was at a friend's house to spend the night with a friend, and the guy's mom comes in, and he's staying at the window, looking out the window, going, Michael, what are you doing? He goes, they're coming. Who's coming? They're coming. So which I, of course, use some Black Eyed Kids. I use both those in Black Eyed Kids. And
I'm
then
getting goosebumps, like just the idea of my child doing that.
He came downstairs, and you could see into our dining room area, and he's like bent down, looking at it, and like, what are you doing? He's like, don't you see them? The eyes under the table, they're watching us. And I'm like, you are the nicest kid ever, but you are creepy as hell when you're sleepwalking.
Oh God, no.
So that got me in the mood for writing Black Eyed Kids for sure. And then as I was writing, it was really cool too. I had a paranormal investigator who reached out to me, who actually had written a book about the Black Eyed Kids and sent me a copy of this book, to the point where, so around the issue 10-ish, I guess, I started giving him like 2 pages in the back of each issue where he could actually tell a real life encounter and pimp his book out. So we had the fictional account story I was writing, and then we had the real life encounters in the back of the book that you can go buy his book and read all about the others. So I found it very fascinating, interesting. I love urban legends. I'm going to do a lot more stories with this stuff.
Yeah, well, I hope that Black Eyed Kids does come back. I feel like there's more to tell, but we have the full 3 volumes that are going to be available in our live sale in a little bit.
Signed
that's
copies.
Right. Signed copies in there, and there's more Black Eyed Kids stuff, right? There's oh yeah, that's right, the #1 convention
the
exclusive,
variant,
also
you can
all
only get
signed
conventions. Yep, I can
by
sign
this
every
all-star here.
Or me, whichever you choose.
It's you. But we have so much stuff to get to, and there's so much to unpack of your whole life story. I feel like we need to do have you on again, or maybe we'll just have to talk through it during the live sale, because that was so much to unpack. It was such an incredible story of just being able to get into the industry like you could back then by just being like, here's a letter, can I please help you, please?
Exactly. You never know what's going to help, so just try. That's all you can do.
Yeah. Well, thank you, Joe, so much for sticking around for this top half. We'll see you again at the end for the live sale. And coming up after this, we will have a clip from the exclusive interview we did with the Miranda Brothers about We Live, followed by an interview with the letterer of that and so many titles from us, Dave Sharpe. So thank you, Joe, and we'll see you all again in a little bit.
Thanks.
Hello, we are so excited to bring you both the creators of the incredible title We Live, Roy and Inaki Miranda. Hello, gentlemen. Welcome to the show.
Hello. Thanks for having us.
Absolute pleasure, and especially with a huge time difference and me messing up the time zone. So I appreciate you taking the time today. So We Live is a huge hit. I don't know if you know this. How has this felt for you, for this title to be so huge and just everybody's nonstop talking about it?
Yeah, I think we just can't believe it, really. I mean, Roy and I are speaking together all the time about this, and we still don't know where we stand because it's overwhelming for us, really. It's really fantastic. I mean, it's our first comic, so we couldn't have asked for nothing better than this.
Yeah, this is your first comic, and obviously your first comic with us. So, how has it been for you going into the comic book world, and what are some things that you didn't expect to come out of this?
Well, and I mean, I've been working in the comic industry as an artist for maybe 15 years already in the US market. And this is the first time that I see what's out there. I mean, it marked like a point where my career changed. Like I started to see reaction from fans and reaction from stores, something that I hadn't seen before. Even I had working there for 15 years. So that makes me see how different and important this book meant for both of us. ¿Sí quieres decir algo?
No, que pues que creíamos mucho en Will y conseguir transmitir esa fe en el cómic, más allá de que no sabíamos el impacto, pero sí que creíamos mucho en la obra.
Yeah, that's true. I mean, he's saying that we believed a lot in We Live since the start, since we started creating it and we pitched it to you guys. And even though we didn't know what was going to happen in the fan side and the reader side and stores, we believed a lot on the book. That's something that it was really something that, I don't know, jump of faith, but we were really excited even before it hit the stores.
Welcome back, everybody, to the AfterShock Happy Hour. I'm RuthAnn, and if you just were watching, we had not only Joe Pruett on, but we had a clip from our interview that we did with the Miranda Brothers that will be live at 6 p.m. today, so definitely check that out. But now we have the incredible designer, letterer, and musician, Dave Sharpe here. Dave, how are you doing?
I'm doing great. That's some introduction. I feel like I need an entrance theme or something.
Oh yeah, we'll work on that. It has to be some of your music that you do. That's what we should have prepped that for you. So
Sounds
you've
good.
done a lot of work across the board, being a freelance letterer designer for DC, Marvel, Valiant, and just a few titles from us. So I'm going to read these off as fast as I can, because
Awesome.
I put them in alphabetical order. Because my goodness, sir, you've done a lot of work with us. So let's see. We have 10 Years to Death, which is the new Aaron Douglas title that we just announced, Clan Killers, Dark Arc, Fear Book Club, Kaiju Score, Knights Temporal, Miles to Go, Miskatonic, Phantom on the Scan, The Revisionist, Seven Swords, Silver City, We Live, and World Reader.
That's excellent.
Ooh, I need to take a breath after that. That's a lot. So how do you have time to do all of this and then also be a bass player for many bands, including Dead Cowboy?
That's good. Well, unlike other disciplines in the comic industry, the letterer tends, like, if you're doing it full-time, full-time letterer, you really need 8, 10, 12 titles a month to letter to really make things go. I mean, we don't get paid a whole lot. We don't get any residuals. We sometimes get our name on the cover, right? But so we have to. There's a lot of hustling involved, and so a lot of us will have 1 or 2 companies where they get a lot of work from, and then just kind of, you hustle and you get what you can. So I've been really happy to know Mike for quite a while, back from his Marvel days, and so yeah, we've worked well together for a long time, so it's been exciting.
Yeah, and there's a lot of consumers that don't actually know about the artwork of lettering. There's some people that think it's just an app or something like that you can type and that kind of stuff. So tell people a little bit about it, because I know it can be a very wide range of stuff, and you see, like, even in the work latest that I was reading from you, Silver City and We Live, that there's like certain like sound effects that you'll do and that sort of stuff. So tell us a little more about that.
Definitely, or for example, a Phantom of the Scan has the ghosts. So we have everything at a transparency when they talk and stuff. And it really makes those little things make a big difference. You know, I go back from, I started in 1990, I went to the Kubert School, and then everything was done by hand. And so learned everything by hand and was taught by some of the greatest. And now, you know, then all of a sudden in 95, you know, that right around there, we switched to computers. I took it upon myself to learn Illustrator, figuring that is the program that most of us use. But then from there, I made my bunch of my own fonts, but you also can purchase some and so forth. So I have a good round. I have both. Ones I've made my own. I purchased some, etc. Some companies like DC likes to use Comic Craft fonts, or at least for a while there, they were using Comic Craft fonts. So if you jumped on Superman, they want you to use the same font as the person before, etc. So sometimes you use commercial fonts in that sense. But yeah, it's a lot of, we're the last person, other than maybe the editor, they were the last person to touch a book before it goes to print. You know, you guys are usually putting stuff together there at the last, you know, putting the coloring and then throwing the lettering on, hoping it fits. So from the beginning, all the artwork's got to be right size so that, you know, when you get to the end, it's ready to go. And then, yeah, there's a level of stuff that I can get away with. You know, is it sound effects, as you mentioned? So we all have a kind of little different styles. You know, the one was a punk. Let's see, which one had that one character, Knights Temporal, and the one character where she was a little loony.
Yeah.
I kind of did a similar treatment that I did on Harley Quinn. I was on at DC for a while. So similarly to that character, had a lot of her words break out of the balloons because it sounded like her language was fluid, and you know, she would kind of high pitch some vote, you know what I mean, like just like overcompensate, you know, just say words a little louder than others, and so I try to make that work, you know, without fighting the artwork. Because if you do that too much, like if I do that on Superman too much, it's done. Or some of the other ones you guys are doing, you know, some of those historical ones on Seven Swords, for example, which I love, I wouldn't do that as much because it'll fight the artwork, it'll fight what's going on. So yeah,
and like the difference that you said of something of an IP like Superman, where you have to stick with that versus creative own. So for you, do you ever ask like the writer like what they think that the sound they make, and kind of and then adjust it from there? Like you were saying, that the ghost is kind of a little more ethereal because it's a little
right.
faded out.
Yeah, for the most part, like, you know, the whole thing from the letter would be like, I don't write my own onomatopoeia. I'm not the writer. So, but sometimes obviously if I'm working on something and it just says gunfire, then I'll make up something cool. We don't want to do that, because what happens is if you don't supply us with the right stuff, then we put in what we think, and then it goes back to you, and then you're like, wait a minute, I want blam instead of bang, you know, and it comes back to me and I got to do it again. So that even with some of that stuff, we almost would rather have the writer give us the closest interpretation to the sound that they think it is, and then we'll use a font to take it the next step, you know, like gunfire or dinosaur roaring or that kind of thing. They all will involve a different font. So
yeah, I find it so cool and fascinating, because you really, as a reader, it kind of, you're like, oh, like you picture your own version of like what this voice sounds like because of the text and the style. So we have a few questions from our viewers.
Cool.
One is about your music from Spine Ticks. Says, what genre of music is Dead Cowboy?
Dead Cowboy, it started off like metal, you know, and then when you get out there and, you know, you get out there in some of the local clubs, and no one, I shouldn't say no one, but they would rather have a much more balanced thing. So it's rock. It's a hard rock and metal's kind of worked into. And so that's that one. The other one I'm in is called Rambo Hill Revival. It's a country rock band with a female singer. So if you're familiar with Miranda Lambert and some of that stuff, it's just an opportunity to play out. The COVID hit everything really hard. On top of that, we had a couple of really big venues here. One of them burned down, one of them closed. It's one thing after another. Then COVID hit, and so if you're a rock band to play in the area, there's like 3 or 4 bars, and then there's 30 bands trying to get in. You know, So with the country band, it's really, and I'll probably get in trouble with this, but it's a lot easier. I say I get to drink more whiskey than, because it's a lot easier, and it's a lot of fun. It's actually a lot of fun. You get a much bigger response in the area from country. So you go out there and play a couple popular songs, and like the whole dance floor is dancing. It's a big difference when you're playing like some Metallica and then everyone's just kind of mouthing back the words at you and standing there, you know? So it's kind of, and I'm a metalhead by heart. So like, no matter what I'm in, I'm going to bring metal to the project. So even our country band ends up being a little bit metal because of me. So
yeah. And how long have you been playing in these bands, and like what brought you to bass specifically? Like what brought you into it?
Well, I mentioned before, before the show, the bass, to me, the bass is the same thing as a letterer. So the letterer, I if I do a bad job, you'll see it. If I do a good job, you almost won't even notice it's there. And so the bass player is the same thing. If I miss my notes, it'll mess the whole song up. But if I play properly, you almost won't know I'm there, because you're paying attention to the singer or the guitarist. And now I'm a little more flashy, both in person and on my bass. You'll see me because I'm a big old idiot. I'm like the Gene Simmons kind of, like I'm that kind of thing where I'm looking for all the attention. It's ridiculous. But so like the bass and the bass and the letter are the same thing for me. But I've been doing it about 30 years now, playing bass, and it was a natural segue. I just got tired. I needed something to do. And now the kids, I have 2 kids, and they're both out of the house now, or 25, and so it's time to find something else to fill my time. So
yeah, and it is too bad with COVID and everything that it caused, especially for live performances. But I have a theory that hopefully once we've gotten like as safe as possible from all this, is that I feel like live performances and all that are going to be more popular than ever, because we are all sick and tired of watching things on our TVs and on our laptops.
I think you're right. That might be a big deal, because we've already seen a comeback of some audiences again, some of the shows we've done recently. So we're pretty excited about that. And yeah, I mean, everyone wants to get out. It's tired. We're done.
Yeah, absolutely. And speaking of like music mixed with comic books, so you're actually on 2 comic books that we have people doing music for. So both We Live and for Phantom on the Scan, there's actually like music that was created just for these titles, and it's like has the QR codes in the comic book. Did you have a chance to listen to any of those?
I did with the We Live stuff, because I don't get my comps till later, and so I don't get that whole the whole package until like a month or so after they hit the stands. And so, but the We Live, I love both books, but I just saw the other day that the Phantom of the Scan had some music, so I'm gonna have to go back and listen to that. But the We Live, I definitely had I've been kind of following what I can on that. It's such a cool project, and it's interesting to me. Like, I enjoyed it, but I'll show my friends like, hey this and hey that, and they'll show them different things, and they're like, think this and that. But man, that's why I knew that one might be a hit. Like when they're all like, this is the one, this one's really cool. So
yeah, We Live blew up, and I've listened to these for We Live. I haven't looked, because I'm already terrified enough reading it, because it's absolutely terrifying.
It is a weird story.
Yeah. So some more questions from our audience. We have C-Less E-Man asks, what is the name of the most commonly used fonts in comics?
Okay.
You're like, all right, we're going there. Okay.
Right, we're going. I guess it's a good question, though. I mean, like, you know what? Because we now, that probably has changed, because for a while there, you probably have seen a lot of Comicraft stuff, okay? Because it's more expensive, which kind of makes it elite, just in the sense that less people will be buying, like less independents will be buying the Comicraft stuff. So, but we were all using CC meanwhile, like it's a lot like it. And even now, I'll revert back to like, it's such a good fun. There's some of them that are so good. The other one would be like, if you went to Comicraft page and just went for like looked at their, you'll notice a few, because the other one was CC Monogalous, I think that's how you pronounce it. And basically it looks just like Warzakowski. It looks like you're lettering old X-Men stuff, and so I even use it on one. I think I have it on 7 Swords or something, because it's so classic looking, you know, and really it's such a cool looking font. But again, so I would say CC Meanwhile might be the one that we in the industry have used a lot, more than some of the other ones. And then I would be remiss to say Nate Pico's Blambot is the other big manufacturer, I guess is the right word, of fonts. And his are a lot cheaper and they're just as good quality. That doesn't mean that the quality is any different. But some of his are starting to be used because if the Comic Craft stuff is $200 a font or something, the Blambot is like 30. So it's a huge difference. So some of the Blambot ones are getting out there. So what you can expect.
Yeah, just how much do you hate personally Comic Sans? Because I don't know who created that or why they named it that, but my gods.
I read, you know, I read somewhere that it was kind of a joke, like they kind of were doing it as a joke, or it was kind of like, you know,
trying to be ironic, and then some people just went with it.
or it was a quick means to the end. Like, we'll do this real quick, we'll pop this out, it'll work on this one thing, and we'll, you know, release it, and then now. Because if you're like a noob, if you're like, oh, I'm gonna make a comic book, let me get a font. You're like, let me get a comic book font, and Comic Sans comes up. You're like, I'll use this. He's like, no, don't do it.
No. Yeah.
Please no.
Yeah. Another from our audience is from Sparks Comics, says, as the last person touching the book, do you get to add anything extra to it?
No, not really. I mean, I might put at that point, say, look, this sound effect is not working. I might give some advice on saying, look, you know, we looked at this thing 4 times now that it's in color, you know, sometimes at that point, I'll get the color scans, put the whole thing together, look at it and change a couple of the sound effect colors. Maybe there's at that point, I see the full art and a sound effect. Sometimes it's better, it's no sound effect. I did a couple pages today with no sound effects at all. Like, it was just a big giant elephant attacking someone. And I was like, you know what? Why? You're going to ruin this beautiful piece of artwork, you know? So, and then sometimes it's better to have a big, you know, roar from the dinosaur. So it really depends on, so even sometimes the artwork itself. So, but I don't get to change a whole lot of things. Yeah. Not a lot.
Not a lot, but it sounds like you said, if there's a sound effect, you're like, that's not going to work.
Yeah,
like
a couple of things I do. Yeah, as far as the regular script, not so much, but the sound effects and things like that. Maybe I'll redo if like the title comes across. I'm like, oh, I don't like the way that title. I'll maybe redo the title quick at the end, or redo the continued, you know, the to be continued box, just because I didn't like, you know, again, to see the color and figure something else will work better. That kind of thing.
Yeah, it's like you have the eye for it because you're the last person to look at it. And like you said, once you see the whole compilation, it's like
the whole thing
needs to be tweaked a little bit. And last question from our audience is another one from C List E-Man, which is, what is the best whiskey to unwind the week with?
You're all gonna hate me, we whiskey drinkers, because I am about as base as you can get. I'm bottom shelf Fireball. And I got some friends that are trying to get me on the Maker's Mark, and they're trying to get me on the single malts, and they're trying to get me on some of those. And I'm sorry, I'm getting better. I found that peanut butter whiskey just the other night, and I was like, oh, I like this now. So, but you know, the Fireball is just it's easier to drink. It sounds so terrible, you know. It's such a terrible.
We all went to college. We all experienced Fireball.
It's like made with like, you know, antifreeze and stuff. Like it's banned in like half the world because of the ingredients are dangerous, and so it's ridiculous. But it's, you know, the one thing is they sell it in those little one ounce,
one shot.
Yeah, you know, and now again in the days of COVID, all you gotta do is buy a brick or a bucket of these shot things, and you're ready. You don't have to pour shots. Everyone takes a little bottle, and it's like the same price. It's like the only alcohol where I think it's cheaper to buy in 1 ounce shots than it is the big jug handle. You know, so it's ridiculous. So
I love it. Well, for me, I'm a bourbon rye girl, so that's what I'm very much like the Bullet rye. Perfect.
Nice.
That nice. One big cube, good to go.
Yeah, I'm getting better with my tequilas. So
Oh,
I have a little
good.
little better taste with those.
But that's definitely not something to drink to unwind with.
No, it's not. No.
For me, I'm like, it's time to party if I'm having
That's right.
tequila.
That's right.
Well, it has been such a pleasure. And my last question, because on your Twitter, how many titles does it take for AfterShock to be listed on your Twitter?
Apparently it took this interview. I'm gonna have to go back. I'm gonna have to go back tonight or tomorrow and change some of that. I haven't used Twitter that much, so apparently I'm gonna have to go and amend a few things.
All good. I want to razz you a little bit about that.
Oh,
so
you're not wrong. You're not wrong though.
Where can everybody find you if Twitter isn't your main hub? Where can everybody find you?
I'm on Facebook. I don't post a lot because of Facebook's just a mess. But I'm on there. You can find me on there. You can find my bands on there. If you find me on there, you can link. You can then find my bands from my page and all that kind of stuff too. That's probably the best way to get at me. And I'm not again, I don't post, but I check it every couple hours. So.
Oh, looks like you're getting a phone call right now on your phone. There we go.
Sorry.
No worries. Well, we'll let you get back to that. Thank you so much, Dave, for joining us today. You've been an absolute pleasure. And everybody else, make sure you stick around. We're going to show you one more clip from the Miranda Brothers interview that's going to be live at 6 p.m. And then we'll have the live sale with Joe Pruett. So thank you again, Dave. We'll see you soon.
Thank you.
Hello. Is there any crossover in your workflow, like when you're working both the creators of the incredible title, We Live, the writer have any input on the page layout or the character design? Welcome to the show. Did you guys
Hello.
Because this
Thanks
is
for
your
having
project
me.
together. It's
Absolute
most of the
pleasure,
pleasure,
Miranda Brothers.
especially with the huge time difference.
And me messing up the
How did you
time
guys
zone,
be
so I
able to
appreciate
balance
you
that
taking
and
the
how
time
did that
today.
kind of
So
work for you guys on a
We
day-to-day
Live
basis?
is a huge hit. I don't know if you know this. How has this felt for you for this title to be so huge and just everybody's nonstop talking about it?
I think we just can't believe it, really. I mean, Roy and I are speaking together all the time about this, and we still don't know where we stand because it's overwhelming for us, really. It's really fantastic. It's our first comic, so and we couldn't have asked. We're very, better. We go every morning to the gym together.
This is your first comic, and obviously your first comic with us. So
there's nothing that I'm going to translate my interpretation of what he said. I mean, and I can't remember exactly the words now, but because we have so much bond when we write. And we also are speaking about the image, everything. And even if something is written, we can always change it while I'm drawing it because he's seeing everything that I do every day. So it's really organic. That the only thing that is important to us is the finished product that it transmits what we want to transmit. So, for example, there was I think it was issue 4. Yeah, issue 4. There's a big spread, 2-page spread of the characters walking in the night, and in the first issue 3, issue 4, issue 3, issue 3, yeah, sorry, and that was added at the end of the book because we felt that moment needed to breathe more. So it's always in constant change if we want to. I mean. Yeah, we're both in the same page in that.
Hello, everyone. Welcome back to the AfterShock Happy Hour. It is now time for our live sale with Joe Pruett. What up, buddy?
I'm back.
It's like long time no see. I've missed you. How are you?
You have to fill me in with what's happened ever since I saw you last.
Yeah, I mean, it was a lot. Dave was an incredible guest. We could have talked to him for forever, but we really want to make sure to jump on in and get these live sale items up because we're only going to have them up for 24 hours, and we know a lot of folks get into this. So let's start with the We Live #1 9.8.
And it is here.
Ta-da!
This is the first printing, 9.8.
Which we are now on our fifth printing of the number ones.
Fourth printing has gone to press.
That's right. Crazy. And so we usually sell this for $100, and for today and today only, it is going to be only $75. So got to make sure you grab this while you can. And this has just blown up, and we've absolutely loved this title. Like, Joe, when you first read this title and the pitch for this, did you have any idea that it would be?
No, I thought it was a great project and a lot of fun, but I would be lying if I said I thought it was going to be a massive success like it is. I thought it would be a good title to have, and I'm happy to be proven. I won't say I was proven wrong, but I underestimated the appeal of the book. It's a fantastic title, and it's doing great for us.
Yeah, and we have also another graded 9.8 of We Live, the incentive cover.
Yes, this is the incentive cover.
And this is also by the Miranda Brothers, right? Like, or did we have or was that the, who did that cover for us?
This is Dustin.
Oh, that's right. Dustin Nugent.
Nugent, yeah, I know I pronounced it wrong. So I paused to wait for you to fill the blank. Hello, and I'll give that dramatic pause to you.
Come on.
The incentive cover is like, retailers should get one copy for every 10 of the regular one they order. So this is a lot rarer than the regular cover. I don't remember exactly the print run, but I would say it's under 1,500 copies total. This normally goes for what, 125?
125, but today we are selling it for only 100.
What a bargain.
What a bargain. I mean, especially like you said, there's only so many printed, and we did not do any reprints of that. So that's as many as there ever will be.
Exactly.
So big deal. So, and then going back to your incredible title with us, Black Eyed Kids, we have the trade paperbacks for any of you that either didn't get all of it yet, or this is your first time hearing about it. Check this out.
The eyes are great.
So creepy.
So creepy. Yeah, it's volume 1. And volume 2 and volume 3. It's all 15 issues to date of the series. FYI, there will be a new Black Eyed Kid short story in October. We'll talk about that some other time.
Ooh.
But anyways, it's just the 3. I'll be happy to sign all 3 volumes, for free. No, I'm not charging anything because I'm a great guy. So
it really is.
So all 3 normally it retails for $45, and we say we're gonna let them go for 30.
Yeah, right? So only 10 each if you want to get all 3 together right here and now.
Like buy 2 get 1 free, kind of the same thing, So exactly, be happy to sign for him. Got the door.
And even more Black Eyed Kids, we have a number 1 of a convention exclusive. Which exclusive or which convention was this for?
We just did the first year. We just did it for convention. Generic convention. We didn't do it for particular one, but you could only ever buy this at the con itself. It was never for a retailer in the stores or anything. So it's a really creepy cover by the interior artist Simon Krasansky, who just gave me this image. I was like, well, it's pretty really gross.
So we can use I love it. Incentive.
So again, it's one, and this one I would say that 500 copies maybe were made of it.
Yeah, and that's it. And we're I don't remember what it usually sells for, but we're only selling it for 10 for this live stream. And
we have a handful left.
And he will sign it as well for you if you want. So definitely get your hands on that.
Yeah, so speculating, here you go.
Yeah, there it is.
Who knows what would happen with film and TV one day? Who knows?
I know. Oh God, seeing just the idea of like a live show of it with like kids with like the black content. It's so creepy.
I won't say anything definite, but who knows? It's all.
Who knows?
Yeah.
Yeah, what was it? The last time I was on here, I accidentally was like, yeah, Aaron Douglas's new title. And I was like, oh, right. It hasn't been announced yet, but we've announced it now. So you got to watch these live shows. Sometimes we slip a little bit.
Whoops.
And now we have one of my favorite titles that started at the very beginning of 2020, which is The Man Who Effed Up Time. And this is the number 1, the Comics Pro variant cover. So you literally couldn't get this unless you were at a very exclusive convention that we go to.
Yeah, this was the Comics Pro Summit. It's just a collection of retailers who are members of Comics Pro. And generally each year we do a variant cover for the show itself. And we just give it to the retailers at the show. You had to basically be there to get a copy. I will say this was a really popular copy given away in 2019. I guess 2020.
Oh, no, it was 2020. This was the
2020. So it's last year. Yeah.
Yeah. So this was our last in-person convention ever. Was this one?
It was a weekend before C2E2. So we did back to back. So this has never been available anywhere else. And I'll be honest, I probably have just a handful of these left, maybe a dozen. So
so there's very few of these that were in existence at all, but also that will be selling today. So and that we're also only selling for $10. So make sure you grab it.
First dozen who get it, and everybody else is going to have to go to eBay.
Yeah, like again, good luck there. We've been seeing these things selling for so much on eBay. And then one of my favorite titles to come out this year is Shadow Doctor #1. Again, another Comics Pro.
This is this year's.
Yeah, and I just if anybody hasn't picked this up yet, this is the true story of Peter Calloway's grandfather in the 1930s being the first Black man to graduate medical school, and then no one would hire him or give him a loan to start his own business except for the one and only Al Capone to be his personal doctor.
Yeah, basically, he was forced to run away from his home in Mississippi because he had a relationship with a white lady in the town. So he ran to Chicago and fell in with Al Capone. It became a personal position for somehow or another. So interesting. This is a beautiful cover by my buddy Brian Stelfreeze. It's just fabulous. Again, this is very limited. 300, 500 copies tops done, and it's never been available anywhere besides at the Comics Pro. And this year, Comics Pro was not a live event; it was a virtual event. So these were only sent to the select stores who attended the virtual event. So really hard to find this copy. And again, this is a Brian Stelfreeze cover. You don't get much better than this.
Yeah, and we're only selling it for $10. So really make sure you get at least one of these, because again, you can't get
very
these anywhere else.
Supplies. Very limited supplies.
Very limited. And then last but not least, we have a Horde variant that we did for New York Comic Con and Baltimore Comic Con at our last New York Comic Con ever. And it's usually $50, but this time we're only selling it for $25. And this is
Marguerite Bennett and Layla Lees, writer and artist. This is a cover by Layla, the interior artist as well. This, as RuthAnn says, was a variant we did for New York Comic Con / Baltimore Comic Con. Only 100 copies made.
Yeah, and actually very few.
Yeah, so the cover price, the regular edition, is $20.
Yeah, this is the regular edition here.
That's the regular, right?
That you can get on our store at any point or at your local comic book shop. But this you can only get with us right now.
Here, only 100 copies ever made. So
and usually, like I said, we sell for $50, and we're doing it for half the price. So
limited 100 copies. So that's exclusive.
Yeah, so very exclusive. So if you're not getting it just for yourself, it's definitely a good investment, because these could go for a lot of money on eBay. So absolutely like a must sell. Maybe let's go through them one more time for anybody that maybe missed the beginning of it. And as you saw, we had not only the letterer of We Live, but we did a pre-recorded interview with the Miranda Brothers to talk about We Live. So that full interview will be live at 6 p.m. Eastern. So make sure you click on the link to be able to check that full interview out. But we have the We Live #1 9.8. And this is a first printing. We just put to press our fourth printing of the. Is that our first time doing a fourth printing?
No, Animosity did 5 printings back in the day. But this is the first time we've gone to press on the first issue when the trade paperbacks out.
Yeah. And we actually had to go unusual. We have to go to a second printing of the trade paperback as well. A third.
Oh yeah, second printing for the trade paperback, which just came out. It's already sold out. We did a third printing of issue 5. So this has been a spectacular selling great title for us.
And that is usually $100, but we're selling it for $75 today. And again, this sale only goes on for the next 24 hours. So if you watch this in the last 24 hours that we've put this out there, you could still get it, but it's not going to be available for long. We also have the We Live #1 Incentive 9.8, which is Dustin Nugent, beautiful. Just I love like the watercolor look to it. So like it just fits the story of the whimsical and just magical kind of story that this is. And usually that's 125. We're doing it for 100. And then Black Eyed Kids, we have all 3 of the trade paperbacks, usually $15 each. But if you get them all together, not only will they be signed by the one and only Joe Pruett, but it'll only be $30. So one of them will be free. Buy 2, get the 3rd free, and get the full compilation. Perfect. And if you're a Baby Teeth fan, there's actually one little panel that Joe wrote that
ties them together.
They kind of ties them together. It's fun. And we also have the Black Eyed Kids #1 convention exclusive, which is a very limited run that we're only selling for $10. And good God, this is the first time I actually saw that cover. And
it's great, isn't it? It gives me the willy.
Mm-hmm. We have the Man Who Effed Up Time #1 Comics Pro exclusive. Again, you could not get this anywhere else unless you were in a very exclusive.
There's a dozen copies left, so if you want it, now's the time to get it.
Yeah, now is absolutely the time, and we're only selling that one for only $10 as well. Shadow Doctor #1, another Comics Pro exclusive, so very, very few copies, and we're only selling that for $10. Mm-hmm. And last but not least, the Horde hardcover book. This is the cover by Layla Lays, who it was so wonderful meeting her at New York Comic Con 2019. It was her first New York Comic Con. She was so much fun. Right. So this is very limited. There was only 100 copies made.
100 copies made total. Right.
Yeah, and usually we sell it for $50, but now and only for the next 24 hours, we're selling it for only $25. So really exciting stuff. This is a really good live sale. And for our next live sale on June 17th, we're going to have, not for the whole show, we're going to have Ed Brisson, who's the writer on our latest title that's going to be coming out called Beyond the Breach. We're also going to have Christina Harrington, our editor here at AfterShock, and then we're going to have an exclusive variant cover of Bunny Mask that's coming out just next week, just for this live show. So, and everybody's got to keep it coming. I'm just making sure there's no notes. Okay, but yeah, I just thank you guys so much for joining. We're going to keep doing these every single other week for now until who knows when, but we have some great guests lined up, and next will be Ed Brisson, so super excited about that. And Joe, I don't think you're going to be here. You're going to be on vacation, right?
I will not. I'll be vacationing out from the West Coast with a couple of friends. And I will forget you guys even exist.
I know. He's like, with a couple of friends. You're going to come see me, Joe? You're going to come see me?
Oh, I said friends, RuthAnn.
Oh.
No, I'll be North California. I won't be South, unfortunately.
All right. Okay. Yeah, it is unfortunate for me. When was the last time I actually saw you in person? Was it? Yeah, it was Comics Pro 2020. Right?
When you bailed me out of prison, or jail.
We don't talk about that.
Secret. Sorry.
I mean, it's your secret. You tell whoever.
Yeah, all right. It's been over a year.
Yeah. Well, I've missed your in-person face, Madonna of comics.
Why did I ever say that?
It's never going to end. I'm going to make sure Rachel tweets it. It's going to be a whole thing. But thank you again for joining. And we'll have you back here on July 1st, but we'll see everybody else back here on June 17th. So have a great rest of your night, everyone, and we'll talk to you soon.
Thanks.